I'm Stephann Makri from University College London Interaction Centre, and I'll be talking about the process of serendipity.
We interviewed 28 researchers and asked to give us a memorable example of serendipity, either as part of their research or in everyday life. We found that their examples contained three common elements. They involved an amount of unexpectedness, they involved an amount of insight, and they involved an amount of value. We were able to describe common aspects of their examples as a process. This is the process of serendipity. This process involves making a new mental connection between an informational or a non-informational need, a need for something, and a thing, a person, event, place, information, or an object with the potential to address this need. The circumstances that led to the connection being made always must involve some unexpectedness. The making of the connection itself always must involve some amount of insight. Forward-facing projections are then made on the potential value of the outcome, and actions are taken to exploit the connection. These actions lead to a valuable outcome which addresses the need but was not anticipated as a way of addressing it. Although already considered valuable to some degree, the full extent of the value of the outcome becomes apparent over time through an iterative process of projecting further value to be gained from the connection, continuing to exploit the connection, and reflecting on the value of the outcome. After reflecting on the role of unexpectedness and insight involved in the experience, it can be considered as serendipity. Let's illustrate this with an example. An urban design researcher was thinking about how to design a joint university faculty building for sustainability and architecture. The aim of the building design was to try to bring together researchers from the two related disciplines. The interviewee wanted to design the movement within the building to provide many different paths between rooms, so that in her words, you had to walk past a series of exhibitions and possible inspirations on your way to work, every single day. While sitting in the studio, and after a long day of thinking about how to design the building, the interviewee was watching the US news-based comedy program, The Daily Show. The interviewee frequently watched this particular show, where the host makes fun of the news and talks to a guest towards the end of the show. In this particular show, the guest was a geologist who'd found the wreckage of the RMS Titanic. When asked about his most significant rather than best-known finding, the geologist described finding large ecosystems at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, where giant tube worms had a symbiotic relationship with creatures that would live inside them and capture sulfur that had escaped from the Earth's crust. The interviewee found this particularly inspiring and translated the concept of the tube worm's symbiotic relationship with the creatures into a metaphor to guide her building design. She used this metaphor to design the building based on a symbiotic, sustainable concept where spaces within the building live off each other, where if you had taken something and cut it off, you were cutting off some of the life source. Described in terms of our model, the interviewee made a mental connection between her need to design the joint university faculty building to bring together researchers from the two different departments, and the information she came across about the symbiotic relationship between tube worms and the creatures that live inside them. There was an amount of unexpectedness involved in the circumstances that led to the connection being made, as The Daily Show does not regularly include factual content. It's a comedy show first and foremost. The host asking the geologist on the show about his most important finding, rather than about discovering the wreckage of the Titanic, might also be considered to be somewhat unexpected. The interviewee also explained that she only went to the studio that evening to pick something up. There was also an amount of insight involved in making a connection, in identifying the symbiotic relationship as a potential design metaphor for the joint faculty building. The interviewee made a projection that the notion of symbiotic relationships must be useful for designing the building, and she took action to exploit the connection by sketching several ideas for symbiotic building designs. She pulled over several times whilst driving home to make these sketches. She also discussed symbiotic relationships with one of her friends who had an architectural background like she did. She continued to exploit the connection by actually designing the building based on the symbiotic relationship metaphor. The connection made by the interviewee resulted in a valuable unanticipated outcome. The outcome was unanticipated, as even though the interviewee was hoping to think of a way to design the building to bring people together, she had not previously considered adopting symbiotic relationships as a design metaphor. The outcome was particularly valuable to the interviewee. She commented, "I would have never found the passion to do the project that I did had I not stumbled upon that." Afterwards, the interviewee reflected on coming across the tube-one information and said to herself, "Wow, what a coincidence that this happened today." Why not leave a comment and tell us your experience of serendipity?